Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so DSS tool requirements and design workshop. So here, first of all, we're going to actually, yeah, can you see that okay? I've got this partially sort of covered. There. Yeah, so here are the steps. 5 steps. First of all, the presentation of the decision support system task within the work package 7 and the preserve project. Then we'll present what is the methodology, the Agile methodology we're going to apply. Step 3, we're going to present some simple examples of an application and how the steps follow to capture the requirements for that application. Step 4, then we will go to Draw.io. So we'll give it the link to apply the methodology to the preserve use case of the DSS. And then in step 5, well, here it says participants will cross-check, but I think what we'll do is that participants will present what they've done. Yep, and then we can discuss it. So we'll see how we can divide that maybe by different end users of the DSS, and so we can the people who have done each end user can then present, and we can all discuss that. Okay, so these are the steps of the workshop. So now we go to what is a decision support system, and what is it in the context of preserve. Okay, so as we said, this work package is the life cycle analysis and sustainability analysis of the project. And so the decision support system will combine information gained from previous tasks, which are 7.1 and 7.2, and scenarios developed in previous subtask 7.4.1. And it will be based on data at different levels of what is called the value chain. And so here, key players, of course, we've got the end users, different stakeholders involved along the value chain towards sustainability, optimization, decision makers, materials formulators, product designers, recyclers. So actually, this is from the project definition. And today we could use these, or we can brainstorm and define some new ones. Okay, so this is completely open at the moment. Who are going to be the end users of this system? The output. So what is the system going to produce as an output? Recommendations for the best upcycling approach for given materials and end-of-life secondary application. So we suppose the input actually is going to be for this material and this end-of-life secondary application, what would be the best upcycling approach? Yeah? So it's like a question-answer type decision support system. Simulation. So here the idea is to simulate different linear and circular pathways, identifying the best routes along the life cycle of new materials, taking into account different user criteria. And so KPIs, so we want to optimize, in this case, environmental burden, we want to minimize it, and we want to maximize the resource efficiency among the test cases. So here on the right, we've got a little schematic of the inputs and the output. So this is very simplistic, of course, version. So inputs, life cycle analysis, life cycle cost, data and scenarios, materials, end of life secondary application. And then the output would be best upcycling approach. Okay, so this of course is to be defined and refined during the workshop and in later stages. Okay, so here we have, as we mentioned, we're going to apply a highly effective but simple methodology to capture some requirements. Of course, this is like cyclic, so we would posteriorly refine. This would be a first draft, and then we do a refinement iterations. Yeah, and so today we could consider we're doing like a first draft to capture the requirements for the DSS. And so going from left to right, first step is we define who are going to be the end users. So what types of end users are there? And then once we know who the end users are going to be, for each of them, we define a set of what are called user stories. So this is really very simply a query that the user would formulate to the system and what would they get back as result? Yeah, so it would be shown on the screen. They would formulate somehow the query or select, maybe pull down list or different options, and then the results would be shown on the screen. And then the third step, which is within the scope of the workshop today, define information required to satisfy each user story defined in the previous step. So first of all, where is the data to satisfy that query the user would like to make? Does it exist? Yeah, so we could like filter impossible queries, which is a great query, but there's no information available for that query, or it would be super difficult to obtain. Yep. So we can also filter the feasibility of what the users would like to do by searching, doing a first search to see if that information would be realistically available. Out of the scope of today's workshop, of course, once we've got through successive iterations what we think is a good definition of the information, the user stories, the users, then we go on to design the system. So the front end, the back end, the screens, and then the database back end and everything comes from a good design in the first three steps. Okay. So here, just to reiterate, we're going to be applying the first three steps of the Agile methodology to the design, identify the requirements of the DSS. This could be considered top-down, yeah. And so top-down, we start at the highest level, which is who are the end users, and then we go down, what do they want to do, and what information do we need to enable them to do that. Bottom-up would be the reverse. So we start looking at data and see what data is available, and then we think about what kind of queries we do, and then we think about the end users. And if you think about that, that could cause a series of problems. For example, a typical error is to design a great system, technically great, with loads of data, but then the users say it's not what they want. Yeah. And we can waste a load of time having to reiterate and redesign everything from at the bottom level. And so this top-down approach guarantees that we've got the end users in the loop from the beginning. And so everything is going to be designed around what they want. And so when we get to the data, we already know that we're filtering and selecting the data, which is specifically for the requirements of the end users. Okay, so there's some very solid reasons for doing a top-down approach in this way. So as we mentioned in the workshop, looking just on the right, we will first show some toy examples, a toy example of applying the methodology. It's actually a real example, but just simple going through the steps. Next, the participants will apply the methodology to the DSS of Preserve. And so we will supply a link to Draw.io to do that. Some users might not have it requires a Gmail to connect to the Draw.io file. And so if you have any issue with that, like you can't use Google services or you don't have a Gmail, then what we would propose is that you do follow the design in your local, like PowerPoint or whatever, and then you can send it in, put it in the chat, and we can include it in the presentation. Okay. But hopefully everyone will be able to connect to the Draw.io with their Gmail. And then finally, the participants will present their results for each end user, and there will be a discussion. So we suppose that the idea is the participants will form into small groups. Each group will develop the process, the methodology for one end user, and that will allow us to discuss each one. There will be a brief presentation of each end user, and then everybody can discuss that, and we'll do a wrap up at the end. Okay, so let's go straight to an example of applying the three-step Agile methodology for a decision support system for waste recycling. Okay, so this is in a similar theme to Preserve, but it's a slightly different objective for the DSS. Okay, so first question of step one, who will be the end users? And so here it was identified that there were two main end users, a waste manager and a product designer. Okay, so we've got the two end users. Next, for each end user, write a set of key queries they would ask the app. And so here, as we see, we've got these like sticky labels or note labels. And so the idea we'll also use this concept of like sticky labels to easily identify what we're doing. So we take the first end user. So we had the, as we remember, we had waste manager, product designer. We take the waste manager, and we write 4 little user stories of queries they would like to ask the app. So the waste manager, putting ourselves into the role of the waste manager. So there should be a partner who actually has this role. Yeah. So they can think directly of what they would like from the DSS in the context of the work package 7 scope. And so here, 4 user stories. First, I would like to know standards documents for the processing of PET bottles. Okay, so PET bottles is one of the high frequency waste which has to be processed, and so would like to know some standards documents for that. Another second user story, I would like to know internal standards of sorting criteria for processing. So internal standards may be of their own company, so something specific which is not like a public document. Third user story, I would like to know specific rules for processing of food packaging. So here, this would be like rules which are also maybe internal standards, or they could be generic rules, yeah? And then fourth user story would be, I would like to see a checklist of quality criteria for recycling a given type of material. And so this is really maybe a little bit similar to the previous 3, but putting it in format of a checklist, yeah, which maybe could be ranked. You could have the top priority items at the top, and then it goes down in order the ranking order in the checklist. Okay, and so here the idea is that this would be a query which is formulated somehow using a user interface or pull down list, or writing the query in free text or whatever, and then the system will recover that and show it on the screen somehow. Okay, so there we have the step 2, very simple, the user stories. Step 3, for each of the user stories, we have to look or think about, maybe you already know, what is the key information which is needed to satisfy it. Okay, so if we look at the first user story, standards documents, so we would expect that an expert would know which standard documents are relevant for that field. Here we have for waste recycling, guidelines ceflex.eu, the EFSA website covering food contact and overall migration limits, another recyclas.eu. So key websites in which standards documents could be found. Also, maybe there's ISO or specific country standards, but this would be more specific for like food waste recycling. Okay, so that would be the information, the databases or online repositories for the first user story. The second for internal standards. And so here we have, actually on the left, here the user in their company or organization would have to document internal procedures, basically. So their own internal procedures which are relevant. In this case, for example, material type is the main sorting criteria. Flexible packaging, bottle, polyethylene, PP film, each has the impurity level evaluated. Okay, so an internal procedure would be to evaluate the impurity level of these different material types. Okay, and then we go to the specific rules. So the user would like to ask for specific rules. And here on the right, lower right, we have, for example, quality objectives. X% odor removal tested by humans. Bacteria are removed by the high pressure of processing at a given temperature, followed by extrusion for plastic. Contaminants levels are sufficient for recommendation. Z% inking removal, W% lamination removal, and so on. So there we'd have these specific figures. which might be ranges or thresholds or whatever specific rules. Okay, so that would be information which is collected for user query number 3. And then the fourth, the checklist of quality criteria for recycling given type of material. And here we, again, this is a combination of documenting, maybe hazard analysis, in this case, conducting a hazard analysis of the product and its production process, identifying critical control points, local risk assessment of each process, hazards to be considered. And here it does mention some official regulations, regulation number 1935/2004, biological or microbiological entities or products, algae and waterborne, physical articles intact or damaged, and so on in the recycling material. And so maybe this could be formalized more as a checklist. And as I mentioned, it could be ranked in order of priority or importance as bullet points. Yeah, for a typical checklist format. Okay, so there we've gone through the 3 steps: a top-down requirements capture for this, in this case, a decision support system for waste recycling. And we can see more or less how we're going to apply to the to any decision support system, any user application. Actually, we could apply this methodology. Okay, so now we're going to begin the exercise. And so here there are 2 ways to do this. We're going to open a Draw.io board, which is it's a Google app, which is freeware, which is available directly online. And so we're going to, or you can scan the QR code or click on this link. And so, a moment, whoops. I'll just put the link in the
sorry, David. This is Manel. Can you write down the link in the chat, please?
Yeah, I'm just trying to do that now.
Okay, thanks.
Stella, do you have? Could you copy the link of the Draw.io? I don't seem to be able to open the. Let's see. Oh, here I have the chat. Yeah, okay.
Yes, it's. I can do it right.
There it is. It's done. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So if you can please access the chat, click on the link. It will just ask you to register with your Gmail, and then you should be able to enter the into the online document. So I'll just go to that now. Okay, can you see my screen with the
yes,
with the Draw.io? Okay, fine. I think I have this. I'm not sure whether it's over the top. Okay, so the users should now be entering here, and we can see going from left to right these little sticky notes. You've got first of all the users. So as previously with the waste manager and the product designer, the idea here you can copy and paste as many times as you like. Going down further, we can make some more space if necessary. And there you define the user type. Okay, and then for each user type, we define the user stories. And then for each user story, the data. Okay, so here we can make it a little bit bigger and write more text, and feel free to adapt this as you wish to enter the information. I would recommend not having too many user stories, like maybe 2 or 3 per user type, 2, 3, or 4 maximum, and then just one sticky note for the data for each of the user stories. Okay, so feel free to, if you take a user type, you can just write over this current definition, and then as people arrive, you can reserve that user type on the left. Okay, so like this one, you can go here, and whoever gets here first, well, you can claim this user type and start writing in the box. Okay, which user type for the DSS. Great, I can see that people are joining. We'll just wait actually a couple of minutes so that everybody who wants to join has joined, and then so maybe to help a little bit, we can go to the what we mentioned in the presentation. So in the DOA, the project definition, we mentioned different stakeholders involved along the value chain, decision makers towards sustainability optimization. So materials formulators, product designers, recyclers. So maybe we can
yeah, just a brief comment, since of course it's all new, but of course one of the end users will be the food and drug stores, where the products will be displayed, where they will yeah, either attract attention, and they need to be, let's say, showcasing the sustainable aspects of it. Let me just check on what I wrote. And the user stories attached to that, what would they like to know? What criteria are there for the use of recycled content in carrier and display boxes? And for that, they could refer to data of existing ones. Somebody wrote data source requirement 1.1. I don't know who wrote that. But it may not be the best example of all things here available, but
yeah, so refer to existing data from, I can't read it because please could you move your user pointer? So yeah, refer to existing data from conventional carrier display boxes. So where would that data come from?
Like, in many cases, some preserve partners contain this kind of information, or they have this kind of information available, because it's their market that we're talking about.
Okay, so we could say from preserve partners.
So let's say Danone or IS. Sorry.
Stella, could you mute Nicolo, please?
David is the host, so I cannot. But then, David, could you mute Nicolo, perhaps? In the three dots that it's on its name, then you can mute or unmute. Or mute.
Yeah, I'm on mute already. I switch off now.
No, David. Stella is asking you. Oh, okay. Now Nicolo has muted himself. Done. Thank you, Nicolo. Go on, David.
Okay, well, I think Mark was just mentioning, define the data, there would be preserved partners who could supply this data, which would be relating to conventional carrier display boxes. Okay, so this would be like the baseline, yeah. So we've got the conventional boxes,
yep,
and we want to improve those designs, yeah. Exactly. So we have our baseline, and then we can measure KPIs with respect to the baseline.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything more on that, Mark? I think that's fairly clear.
No.
Okay, so let's go to the next. Maybe here, who would like to present next? Volunteers. I think there are several, like product designer here to the right, the product designer. This is quite well defined. Who did Jaime? Yeah,
maybe
Jaime did this one. Could you, Jaime, please just give a brief explanation for your
one is about the product designer. I wrote 2 user stories. One about knowing like the consumer preferences, obviously, and this is scope taking into account eco-friendly products and some differences in optimizations. About data, I thought about getting this data from basically market research, some surveys and questionnaires, both to industry and to maybe consumers. That's why I wrote consumer feedback also, and then taking into account online trends. So both take into account social media and some trends like Google Trends. I think would be the bigger amount of data for these ideas or preferences about consumer. And moving on to the other user story. In this case, I focused on the design solution, on the patterns, and obviously for this topic, I think the most relevant data are obviously the costs, both the materials, the suppliers, in case some of the product has to be done by in a collaboration, and obviously the testing costs before taking the solution to the market, and also obviously take into account the regulations, both the country, the European, and any regulations criteria.
Okay, so maybe this information could be coming from the previous tasks in work package 7, yeah?
Yes, basically it's quite similar to what was presented about these sources of data.
Okay.
Maybe one suggestion to add is investment costs in molds, for instance. This would also be of importance to understand.
Could you repeat, please, Mark?
A suggestion to add to it is investment cost in molds, because that is always an important criterion for product designers, whether they would follow up on a certain product solution. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Jaime, for that. So let's see who could present next. Who would like to present next? We have, for example, material formulator. So who did the material formulator?
Yeah, I'm Jeja. So I did that part, the 2-1.
Okay, thank you.
The first one, we would be like to know about the sustaining materials, which will benefit in the way giving lower environmental impact. And the second one is on the upcoming regulation and the restrictions on the chemical substances. So and the user data, probably for the first one, I think we do like literature reviews, and there are a lot of companies offering like bio-based solutions, materials, and we may need to look into the advantages of recycled materials and how the material cost and benefits what we achieve, and again, like environmental impact. And coming to the second part, it's very important to understand the materials of concern and regulation trends, and we should be compliant to that.
Okay. And where would this data come from? Is it within the tasks of Work Package 7? Would that be provided by other partners?
Yeah, it would be like for example, regulation, it's available in the for example, REACH, SPHC, those things are available already. So it's
maybe I can help a little bit here. Actually, these inputs from regulation and materials of concern are going to be worked in the project by Work Package 7. We are also working with all the regulation, and we check that all the materials that we are using in the project are fully into the regulations, and that we can sure that at the end of the day we can use these materials on the market, and we don't have any troubles in terms of government and regulation and so on. It will be work on the project by Work Package 7, I think so.
Great. So please, who did the manufacturers and sales of cosmetics? If you could explain briefly your use case.
Yep, that would be me again. Yes, that's those are in fact, in this case, maybe some of the preserve partners also. Well, they would like to know the criteria that apply to such kinds of products. I refer to the carrier display box, but it may refer to any kind of product coming out of the preserve project. So also the pouches, the containers, and so on. And first of all, the data that will be required refers to the cost breakdown of existing carrier boxes. So we need to know with what we compare it to. Market research, also as Jaime referred to, would be required. Or customers willing to pay extra for recycled versions, and of course a list of requirements of mechanical properties. And then also it will be interesting for those parties to understand what kind of options they have to express the circular ambitions or the vision of the company by using design components. That is the second part. So how can they showcase what they stand for? And also this could be, yeah, checked by data coming from, you know, research on appreciation, customer evaluation of products and so on. I hope it's a bit
That's
clear.
Okay, so here there is one aspect that we have to sell to the customers the idea. Yep. So if they have to pay a little bit more, it has to be attractive in several ways. Yeah, several dimensions to them.
Exactly.
So they will make the decision to go for the.
But you would like to know what the range is that you can move in between, you know. So the price elasticity, or how you may call it, because.
Right. Okay, maybe we could add that here or. Sorry about this noise. Okay, great. Well, if does anybody else would like to present their example? I think we've covered
This is
the
another one on the recycle on the right, above this one here.
Yep. Go ahead, please.
So the recycle would like to optimize the processing of a determinate compounding, like taking into account both the social and maybe the costs. I thought about data for these processes could be the number of processes in the compounding process itself, and the energy costs, like the machinery, also the water costs for maybe the extrusion process and whatever. The duration for this process and the relation in material quantity between input and output materials to know if it's suitable for actually taking this compounding process.
Okay, that's great. So that would be sort of like the typical mass energy balances, yeah?
Yeah.
Where would this data come from? From the project, from the work package 7 tasks, or from work package 3 maybe?
I would say it mainly from technical partners from the project itself. So yeah.
Just add that as the data source.